Hello and welcome to Patents TV Live. I'm Jeff Bond, your host, and this is episode 30 of our series. And today we're going to take a look at the iOS versions of Apple's operating system. And I've got actually side-by-side comparison of Apple 6 and 7. And I'm going to show you what we have on the screen is basically a projection using a program called Reflector, and it allows me to actually project as many as 4 iPads at one time, or iDevices at one time, and it just is working, and I'm really lucky that we are. Sometimes we have an issue with the wireless, so what we do is we actually connect to the wireless network here locally, and you have to be not only on the same wireless network, but we found out you have to be on the same router as well. So sometimes that gets to be a little tricky. Every once in a while I'll use my little iUSB port. It's a little device that gives me a quick hotspot, and just in instances where I do have trouble with getting on with the Reflector, I'll use this little device. Really like it. The other thing that we used to use was the old Apivo, which would take a picture of the iPad and project it onto my screen. I couldn't do it with 2 iPads like I am now, but the only problem with this is it gave us a lot of reflection from the lights above and so forth. So we're not gonna mess with that anymore. We're gonna put that away and use Reflector and keep our fingers crossed that we have everything set here. Well, I have on the left side I have the operating system of iOS 6. That's the older version. And on the right I have 7. And you can see right off the bat that there are some real differences in the way that both of them look in comparison. I tried to put up the same background so we stay somewhat consistent. But as you can see, the icons are a lot brighter on 7 and kind of flashier. They've actually changed what the icons look like a little bit. So people are trying to get used to it. There are some things with iOS 7 too that were built in, and one of them is the motion effect, that if you move the iPad around, you can kind of get this little 3D effect. And unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that today because while I'm on Reflector, it evidently disabled it. So I guess that might be a good thing. I won't get dizzy and so forth. The other thing about the iOS 7 is when I compare it to just opening, for example, just Notes just sort of comes up on the right side. If I go to Notes on the other side, they tend to have a zoom function, and some people aren't really happy with that as well. If you notice across the bottom of iOS 7 down here, a little different, and instead of double clicking the button, and when I do that 2 times, it brings up a different screen than if I double click on iOS 6. And I would scroll through and make my choices or whatever down on the bottom. Over on iOS 7, they actually give you a picture of what's there. And if you want to take something off, you take it and just slide it up and it goes away. So on iOS 6, you had to hold the button down until they wiggle, and you had the X and so forth. So again, some subtle changes. Let's go into our settings function and take a look, because that's where some of the real things are different. As you can see on the left and right, some of the items have been moved around a little bit. Accessibility here on 7 was down at the very bottom, here down on 6. And they've added a couple other features. We have text size over here. Spotlight search is still there. And usage and so forth. Our lock, rotation, and or mute are still available. But on 7, again, we have some other things on here that might be helpful and hopefully not confusing. What I'd like to do, and as we look at the right-hand side, I guess I should look at that. Most of that is pretty much the same as we scroll through what's available on that side. Another thing that folks have said about the iOS 7 is that the text just isn't very bold. It's kind of a grayish color or consistency compared to the iOS 6. So as I'm sure as Apple gets feedback from folks, they'll maybe make some tweaks to that, and we might be able to have a tweak here as well as we do this. What I would like to show, though, primarily are the accessibility features. And I'm going to open up the accessibility features here in iOS 6. Again, iOS 6 is the one on the left. And open up iOS 7 over here on the right-hand side. From the vision standpoint, it's pretty much the same. There are things that we can do as far as using VoiceOver and Zoom and so forth. On the left-hand side where we have the large text over here, they now have it down in a separate spot. So what we can do here is not only enlarge the text, but we can also make it bold. So if we go over and click this on, okay, so I've selected the bold text and it asked me to do a restart, and I'm not going to do that just for the sake of time. We'll go ahead and cancel that. But that would increase the bold text. In fact, it looked like it actually did without a restart. So we'll see how we go through the rest of the presentation. Another thing that you can do, again, I mentioned about that shakiness that some people have when they hold up the iPad and move it around, and it kind of gives that 3D effect. Right here under reduced motion, if we turn that on, we can actually turn off that function. So if I hit my little spot there, it turns green. That lets me know that it's now turned on. And we're confirmed with it being shown right here that it's actually on. So we've got that. We can turn off the labels, which were some things that we couldn't do on the other side, on OS 6. But another real important addition was under hearing. We now can do subtitles and captioning, which of course you have to have that sort of thing embedded in whatever you're watching or viewing. So you can turn that on and it should come up with closed captioning. So a real important component added to that as well. And then we have just our mono and our left-right channel if we want to turn that on for the hearing impaired. And then we have guided access still available, where we can go in and block out certain areas of the screen so that an individual doesn't accidentally or purposely hit something and maybe run a charge up with picking up all kinds of add-ons with some of the apps that are available out there. So we can actually make some changes there. And then we get down to the physical motor. And one of the things that really came out that I've been playing around with is the switch control. That was something that was not available on the old version. We did have assistive touch, and we do have, the home click speed and so forth. But this is just a really interesting function to play with. And I played around a little bit with some of the switch add-ons. But what I really had fun with was actually going into our switch controls, and we can set up switch speeds, and we can set up our switches, and then we have the amount of scanning time that they're on, and the pause and so forth, loop, a lot of things that are common whenever you're doing switch access. And the way I have it set up here is we can do a large cursor, and we can change the color of the cursor, and we can save gestures and so forth. I went ahead and added a switch, and under switches here, I selected full screen. And some of the selections that we have are select the items and the scan menus and resume auto scan and so forth. So those are all little things that we can play with. We can do it with a tap and so forth. So something to look at. We can add new switches if we want to, if we actually plug in a device to the iPad that allows for switch access, or if we connect via Bluetooth for switch access, then those can all be customized for the user and the particular switch setup that they like. So I'm going to go out here, and we're going to turn on switch access and take a look at what it does. So right now I've got it turned on, and I've got it set for full screen. So my iPad has become the switch itself. So when I tap on it, we start scanning. And then when I want to tap on something else, I would go ahead and tap it again. And then another screen comes up. And this screen will highlight and go through. Let me zoom in on that a little bit so we can just take a peek at what it looks like. So what we've got here is now it's scanning for a tap, for a scroll. If I want to go to my home button, I can do that. If I have a different type of gesture that I want to add, I can do that. I can go in and do editing. I can go to another device, or I can go to settings. And let's just go into settings here real quick and take a peek there. Once I'm in settings, I have my go back, but now I can start tweaking it a little bit better. I can speed it up, I can slow it down, I can move things around. And as you see, it actually goes blank, so it makes a selection of not selecting anything if you decide to do that. And then we can do our scan order, we can turn speech on and off, and then we can also turn on the way it groups. So kind of a nice little touch there. And I'll wait till we get to back, and I'll tap it one time, and we'll go back. We'll go out to our home settings and see what we have there. So as we're scrolling through here, I tap it again, and we'll go out to home. Let me zoom back out. So now we're actually scanning on the main screen. So again, it scans by rows, and then you can do by columns. So if I decided that I wanted to select, for example, settings again, I'm going to hit once, and the settings will scan. If I miss it, it goes beyond it, and then asks to scan the settings row again, and then we'll pick the column, and we're going to pick settings. So we'll scan here through my tap. I tap, and we're back to our scanning controls. One of the difficult things that I was having a little problem with was trying to turn off the scanning. And so in playing around with it, and sometimes that's what it takes and experiment, but if I do my triple click, I actually have the scanning come up now where I have my accessibility options. So if I want to turn off scanning, I click once, go to scan control, click again, I'll wait for it to come through and tap, meaning that I've made the selection, and we've turned off scanning. So just a quick and easy way to look at how scanning operates and will work with a variety of apps. It's really just a neat feature to play with, and I'm sure will really make the iPad far more accessible with the built-in feature than it would have been. So side-by-side comparison has been, I think, hopefully helpful for the viewers to explore a little bit more with what iOS 7 has that iOS 6 didn't. So with that, I'm going to mention that we have our vendor coming in 2 weeks, and that's Lazy Tech, who will be doing their presentation on some devices that they have. I'd also like to share with you the Tech Expo, which Patents is planning April 17th. So we've got a little ways to go, but we'd like to just sort of put that out there so that folks have a chance to maybe plan on going to that. We will not have a showing on the 1st of November, as that's the Patent State Conference, so that episode won't be available. We're going to be doing our state conference the 4th and 5th, so we'll have our hands pretty well full with that. While I'm thinking about it, I do want to point out that our vendor spotlight is here at the Patents Project, patentsproject.com, and it's under the services and then vendor features, and I'll go ahead and click on this. Here's what it looks like. We have our vendor features here. So our September featured vendor was J.R. Cooper and Associates, and we talked about the big Bluetooth keyboard. Got a picture here and a video that you could watch, or you can go back to our YouTube to our Patents Live TV presentation that we did featuring this vendor last week. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you for viewing.